welcome to another video, a different video, and something really nice. Not that anything that comes in here isn't, but we got ourselves a 57 Chevy four-door wagon. That's right. And what we're going to be doing is an engine swap. The engine is already here, a brand new Blue Point Chevy 350 going in this beast. It already has a 350 in it, so it's not going to be an issue with the transmission or anything else like that. So really looking forward to it. It shouldn't take that long. There are going to be some changes. We got to do a little bit of fabrication. We're going to be adding another set of engine mounts to the side that would be standard for a 350, and the front ones that would be standard for a 57 Chevy. We're actually going to move the engine 3/4 of an inch forward. That's what he's asking, so that's not a problem. I actually did it to the Chevy right next to it, which happens to be a 57, and I moved that one 1 inch forward. So we're going to move everything, including the transmission mount, obviously, because you have to. Everything's going to come 3/4 of an inch forward, and that's after the engine is out. And then there's an inner pan that's down here in this corner, which would be the right side passenger, that's going to be changed out. It's rotted out. So we're going to clean it up a little bit. We're going to make it all nice and pretty like, and it's pretty already, but we're going to make it prettier with a different engine. So I'm going to do a walk around and show you this really nice car. I know I did a short video on it once before. When it came in, I was working on something else, and I just wanted to show the car. These 57s are my favorite. That's why we have one here. And to give you an idea of what we're moving on that car, hopefully you'll see it. See these mounts right here? Well, this is the standard 57 Chevy mounts. And actually, like I said, I moved mine 1 inch forward, and then I do have the side mounts over there and did the same thing. He bought, I think, the bolt-on type for the side bracket to go on the frame. I made mine, and they're welded in solid, and that's how I did that. So that's what we're looking at when it comes to this car, moving it 3/4 of an inch forward. And along the way, I'm going to show the things that are, progress, basically. But I want to get another shot. I really, really, really love these 57 Chevys. As a lot of people do, I'm sure. And before I get started, actually the client's here to help me actually take the hood off, which I've done them many a times without any help. It's not that hard. I just cover everything. I stuff, whether it's blankets or whatever, when it comes to taking it off. And either I can use my engine hoist, or I'll use my machine, or if it's light enough, I just lift it off myself. So before I get started, actually, I'm going to be putting some masking tape on different areas to actually mark where the hood is currently, so that when it goes back on, it's going to go right back the way it was. This way the alignment's a little easier, and it verifies the way it was when it came in. And I've done that before, and that's the way I'm going to carry on to do it again, because sometimes back in the 50s, when they stamped this stuff out, it wasn't perfect. And that's the way they are. They're not perfect, and that's fine, because they're definitely a class all on their own. So, and then once they're marked, I'm going to cover it with paper, thicker paper, mark it again, and then there'll be other stuff going on top of that. So it's just a lot of the preliminary work that must be done, that will be done, and that'll be that. So in the meantime, as I get moving and I chime back on, stand by. Well, I'm back, and as you can see, hood is off. I drained the coolant. Some of it from the engine, obviously, and the rest from the radiator. I started disconnecting some of the hoses and the wiring, and just looking overall on what's going to take to come out, what's going to be in the way, all that kind of stuff, and pretty much going to hope for the best as I'm moving along. So I'm just going to keep at it. I'm going to start, get a little more heavier into like removing the linkage from the carburetor. Let's see, and the transmission. This way I could take the carburetor off and put the engine hoist plate on there. And I'm going to take, even though this engine is not going back in there, we're putting a Chevy engine back in it. So it's just kind of, let's see how it's a little bit laid out. Probably going to lay it out similar to what's in here now. But I know I'm going to have to disconnect the ram horn style exhaust manifold. Yep, that's for sure, because it'll be in the way if I leave that one on there. I'm not going to disconnect the lines or anything for the AC pump over there. I'm just going to take it and put it off to the side, wrap it up comfortably so it stays out of the way. This way we don't have to recover or lose the Freon in there. Same thing with the power steering unit, because this is a hydro system that's in this car. And I'm going to kind of figure out the bracket on here because it's part of the engine mount. So I think that'll be probably one of the last things. So this way I could take the engine hoist, whether it's that or my machine, and keep some pressure on there and remove the bolts from the front of the block. That'll separate the actual pump. So there's a lot of stuff underneath here that's got to get out of the way. And you know, especially the wiring. But in the meantime, I guess once I get a little further, because I don't want you to be bored with all the silliness that it takes to actually do the swap out of here, I don't see why I would have to take any of the radiator support out of the radiator, because it's on the front side of the support. I'm not going to pull the transmission out with it, even though we are going to be moving the transmission mount 3/4 of an inch forward. But I don't see any need to actually take that out. I can just support the transmission all by itself. It could stay there. It'll save time. And this way it saves the client money. So that's the plan. I'm going to get to it. So in the meantime, stand by. Okay, Puss in Boots and I are back, and she's about to give you the update. That's right. She's hanging out with me right next to the car on the carpet. Yep. That's pretty neat, I think. But I'm going to show you what I got disconnected. Well, I got the exhaust, or left side, the exhaust disconnected, the pipe on the bottom, but also on the ram head here, except for one bolt, because what's going to interfere is the power steering box. So as soon as I lift it up just enough to clear it, then I will be able to take it off before it even gets into this general area before the hydro boost. Carburetor's off, the plate's on, so nothing gets in there. The wires for the distributor are disconnected, and the resistor, it's all disconnected. The plug wires are out. Yeah. And let's see, on this side here, same thing. The exhaust, only on the manifold part, is disconnected. I don't need to take the pipe out. Gas line's disconnected. What else did I get down here? Oh, the fans are out. Yeah, they're missing. Unplugged. The fuel line, obviously, from the carburetor, the linkages and all that stuff, everything to do with the carburetor. So now I'm attempted to loosen this up, the compressor for the AC, which if you can see in there, this is how it works. You loosen up the top nut, and then you make your adjustment here, actually, by turning it, and when this one is up higher, it'll allow the compressor to roll downward, and then I should be able to get the belt off. And then I'm going to take this and set it aside here. Most likely it'll make the battery. I'm going to get two caps, well, mainly one cap for the positive here. I got them to cover that, so this way nothing gets shorted out, grounded out, or anything. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to work on moving that over here, and then I'm going to work on the power steering. And once all that part is done and I have what I can up here disconnected, then I'm going to lift the car up the same way that one is over there with these. I'm going to put these two up in the front instead of the 6x6s, so I have a comfortable amount of space underneath the car to unbolt the transmission. So that's my plan. That's the next move, and she's worn out and tired. Now she's going to take her nap again. But that's that for now. So until the next part, stand by. Oh, one more thing I got out was the dipstick tube for the oil. Yeah, that's out already, and there's actually the fan. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. And where that thing actually stuck out up here on the engine bay, it was probably tricky to check his oil because it was down in there, and I think he had to pull the dipstick out from underneath the hydro boost section. I'm not really sure, but that's how I had to get that assembly out of there. But little quick note, little side note, so stand by. There's only one more item I need to unplug, tag, and it's the oil pressure sensor part. So I think he's got a Dakota dash in there. I believe that's the company that might have made it. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. But I know I have to try to find it back there behind the distributor somewhere. And it's kind of tight, so we'll see what happens there. And I just got done lifting the car up and putting it on my stands here. And I jacked up the back. I think you can see the stands right now, right there. And made the car even all the way across. I got Puss in Boots approval. She's right here, wants to be petted. She's letting me know it's all good. Find that. And then I'm going to get underneath there. It's the reason why I lifted it up that much more, to make it comfortable to get at the transmission. And I noticed when I was underneath there, and there's an additional mount that they have that actually bolts to the original transmission mount that actually cradled the Power Glide transmission that used to be in there, and then mounts onto the bell housing of the transmission. That's the first time I've ever seen that. I actually eliminated that off the 57 Chevy next to it, and I made it look like that a body mount would go on there, and actually I put a body mount on mine. So I think they're going to have to be eliminated once we move the engine 3/4 of an inch forward, because when you move that forward, transmission has to come forward, all that stuff. So, and there might even be some adjustments made on the exhaust. Hopefully there's room to move everything back a little bit so that we don't have to like cut and sleeve the exhaust, because that's definitely a lot more entailed. Not a big deal or nothing, but you know, it's just more things that have to be adjusted. So I know for sure that I cannot reuse those mounts that are on the side of that. And actually, if the ladder was set up on the shelving here, I'd go and actually snatch up what I eliminated. I saved it just in case, and I would actually show you how it is, because it comes off the side of the frame. And there's another detail that some people don't know. When it comes to actually the 57, I'm sure all the three, the 5, 6, and the 7, when they had the transmission bolted in like that, part of the support for the floor came off the top of the transmission. There'd be a bracket that went across that bolted to the side part of the body structure that went across from one side to the other. And that helped from the floor, you know, eventually sagging, especially for the hardtops. I'm sure, you know, that was a big part of it, the hardtop, so that the doors wouldn't get all messed up. I know that for sure. I've seen it. You know, I've gone through these cars many a times. Heck, I've done my own 3 times. So that's one detail that some people don't know when it comes to the hardtop 57s, and I believe the convertibles, I think they might have a different frame. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. Never owned one, but nevertheless, I'm sure once I get into moving the transmission around, that I'll be able to see the bolt holes in that body, the lower floor pan support. But what I did with mine, I actually turned it in almost like a unibody type thing, as to where I went in there and I made it stronger and did more welding to the floor pans once I put them in there, to kind of make sure that it wouldn't flex like that. And actually, I actually crowned it up a little bit so that once I was done, it would settle in a flat format. So it worked out really well. Enough of all that silliness. I got to get back to this. So in the meantime, stand by. All right, I'm back. And I'm moments away of carefully pecking this thing out. I verified that there's nothing connected. That little oil pressure sensor plug, boy, that was a treat getting at that, because it's literally behind, alongside the distributor right here. So there's, and it goes in from the top down. That made it real fun, actually. And Puss in Boots agreed. She got her paws involved. But I'm letting some more of the antifreeze drip out and into the pan below. So, yep, everything looks good. And the last bolt, actually, that I took out, and I knew I had to do that. That's why I disconnected the ram head manifold from the pipe, along with off the side of the block. But there was one bolt you cannot get out, which, because it's alongside of this gearbox for the steering. So after you go so far with it, you get it up out of the way enough, then you can get a ratchet in there and get it out of there. And now I have it sitting over there on the shelf with the bolt in there to remind me, which kind of hard to forget considering I have the same style manifolds on this bad boy. So I'm going to give it a little bit more to drain out, because I don't want to make a mess over the car. And until then, when I have it out, stand by. Alrighty, I'm back. And as you can see, that bad boy is out. Just enough room to sneak it out of there with no issues. And because my cylinder has to be rebuilt, which I should have done it already, but I'm going to have to look it up and buy the rebuild kit and get her done. In order to clear the oil pan to get it out from the front of the car, I had to do that. Can you tell? Can you see it yet? I actually, let me see, turn this around, used a tool to take the Schrader valve out. Yep, let the air out of both tires, and that lowered it enough to where I cleared, and that was that. That's awesome. So now I got to put it somewhere. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'll tell you. Yep, so I got to figure that out. I got to place it somewhere. And then I got to get on the fabrication side of things, where he got the side-mounted engine mounts and the brackets that actually calculate the 3/4 of an inch forward on the front of the cross member right there. Somewhere mounted there, there's rivets. You take them out, it's bolted in. But I'm also going to be using these front mounts. He got me new ones, and I'm going to move them 3/4 of an inch forward. And the same thing when it comes to the transmission, as I have mentioned. So that being said, as I was under the car, I noticed the incredible bubblegum-like welding. I'm going to see if I can actually get it on video, of the brackets that hold the bracket for the car, for the transmission mount. Let's see. Let's see if I can get underneath there and show you. I already told the client what I saw, and I told him that this car is not leaving until that part is fixed. Yeah, it's bad. I'm surprised it even held on. Let's see. I think you could see it. It's all like piled up like bubble gum along the side, across the top, and both sides are the same way. See, I had to actually take the cross member out. And the other thing that I noticed is that the cross member had a bow going up. And maybe that was to help give them clearance on that distributor, but I don't see how it needed it. It's not a big distributor, it's the smaller one. So I went and I straightened it out. I pressed it straight. And because I actually had a hard time once the two bolts were out either side, I had a difficult time of clearing the stud here that's the transmission mount. I couldn't clear it. But I did end up getting it out of there, and then I looked at it and saw why there was an issue, and I fixed it. So I had to place it back on there because I had to lower the transmission so that I can get at the top of the transmission housing, the torque converter section there, the bell housing up at the top to get at the two top bolts. There was no way of getting at it unless I lowered the tail end of this, and it gave me the clearance I need to get them out. So obviously I needed to put it back up because I'm not looking to take the transmission out. But I also noticed the bad welding on his drive shaft, and it's a good thing he has to get a new one made because the front here, I don't know who did the machine work and the welding, but it's some areas like right where my finger is. I don't even think it covers the cut that was made. The weld goes off to the front part towards the yoke, and it's the same thing around the back of the drive shaft. Uh, wasn't touched. I think that looked pretty good. But when you get a new drive shaft made and it has to be longer, you get a new tube. So I sent them pictures of that as well, and told them I'm really glad that we're getting a new drive shaft because you need that. That's pretty horrible right there. Pretty horrible. But it's all going to get taken care of. It's not going to leave until it's right. It's just the way it is. Hopefully you heard me say all those things about the drive shaft, the cross members, because my speaker, my microphone, faded from me. But all this is going to have to be made longer. He needs a new one, and the weld job was horrible. That's what I was just saying there. And I had to take the cross member out, straighten it out. It had a bow going upward. I flattened it back out, so that should take care of that because that was difficult to get out. I'm not sure if you actually got to hear that when I was first explaining it, but that was a quick summary. But anywho, I got to find a place to put the engine and get started on cleaning underneath the hood there, the cross member, and start taking measurements and doing all that other stuff to start doing some fabrication that I love to do. So until then, stand by. All right, I'm back. It's the next day. It's Friday, and it's cold out. 42 degrees. Might be a tad bit warmer now by maybe 2 or 3 degrees. But I've been climbing in and out from underneath this and on top and in the engine bay area. And I finally got to remove one of the splash pan, aerodynamic pan. I don't know what it's actually called, but it's part of the inner body panels. And Puss in Boots wasn't around to help me, but here she is now. Boy, I tell you, she always pops in. Here she is. She ate twice so far, and it's already early. She's already eaten twice. Yeah. But the pan I had to get out that finally just dropped to the floor is that one right there. You can see once I get it out. It's pretty rusted. You can see the holes in there. It's definitely the original one from '57, which this is sort of normal. Yeah, it's not the first time I've seen that, but we have the new one. It's nice that they make them. It really is, because they are needed. if you had to fabricate that by hand, the amount of time you would put into that piece versus what this costs is a lot. But making them is when you can actually buy them, it is a lot cheaper. And there is a left and a right, so that I don't lose sight, and I need two hands to get it out of the package. Yep. There are a total of 5 screw-like bolts that hold these in. The one is a bit of a challenge, but you can get it. I did. It would be nice if if you had a second hand to help you, so they can be underneath the car. And let's see, just like that. All right. So I'm going to show you. So if you have to change it while the car is together, you'll know what you have to do. And the the screw type bolts are 7/16. Let me show you what I mean by screw type bolts. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like a sheet metal screw, but they go into a certain type of receiver, like you could probably see here. See that right there? And once it goes in from the other side, it fastens pretty good. So I'm going to end up cleaning these up, because they got coating on there, a little surface rust. But the one that's difficult to get at, it goes in like this. The dip faces to the ground. This one right here, the one in towards the front of it, going towards the grill. And because the frame runs right through here, there's a nice comfortable space right here. You're going to need, for the length that I found workable, the deep socket 7/16, 6-inch extension with a 1-inch extension. And it would help you if you had electric ratchet. Typically, something similar to this. This is rigid. I've mentioned these electric tools before. Pretty much got the whole set. And once again, not being sponsored, that's definitely my MO. Once again, not being sponsored. But it worked out well this way. You don't have to try to, the little short movement that you'll have. This works out well. So the deep socket, 6-inch extension with a 1-inch extension. And I'll show you where the 1 end comes out. You'll have to, if the engine is in there, you're going to have a harder time. But if the engine's not in there, like in this case, you can hop right in there, and if you have somebody underneath the car, they can help guide the socket to where this screw bolt is underneath there and lines up for you. I'm going to have fun getting this back in there. I think I might be able to start it by my fingers and go from there and then hop up inside the engine bay area. But I'm going to show you where I'm talking about. Put all this stuff out of the way. All right, the light is focused in on that particular area, and where you end up coming out is above the upper control arm. Let's see if I can get you in there a little bit better. Let's see, what the hose is. A good thing they move, and this apparatus for the transmission coolant lines, I definitely don't like it, but it is where it is, and unless we go and change the whole thing, which I don't believe that's going to take place, but that's okay. But right in here, you can put your ratchet and follow it right in, because the pan goes right in here. It comes up and goes that way, and you can see the surface rust imprint where it mounts. So I'm going to try to get the first one in, which will be that one, because then the pan is flexible. You can get up in there, and once you have that one in there and all the stuff lined up, then the other 4, which there's 1, 2, and then on the inner fender there's the 2 other ones. And then that takes care of that. This side here is pretty nice. Looks original. Nothing wrong with that one. But I suggested to him because that one was in really rough shape. And he got another one. So I'm off and running. I'm going to try to get that in there after I remove the white tag. I'm going to hope for the best. And until the next little part, stand by. All right, I'm back. And what I'm showing is that new piece is in. And I got to tell you, it wasn't easy getting it in there. I got one more part to put back on. I had to remove the side bolt and washer for the upper control arm bushing, which is right up there. I got to put that back in there. And I had to do a couple other things. So if you're doing it by yourself, even this part has to be done. You're going to need a wedge, like what I got right there. That's actually for glass and rubber. As far as if you needed to use the Slim Jim, that's what's used. I used this long stem chisel, this pry bar. Reason being is there's a curled end factory wise. I don't know if I can really get in there. That's in this area, so you can't slip the new piece in there. So I used the pry bar to pull this back. Then I used the chisel to go up alongside, inside between the sway bar and the frame, like that, and to hold that out, which then made it really nice to get up in there. And once I had it slipped in there, I lined up. I'm going to prove that that bolt is back in there and tight. I'm pretty sure now you can see it. I could see it. It's there. And that was the tough one to get out that I expressed, and now it's in there and tightened up. And that's the first one you should put in. Telling you straight up, first one. I used this piece of wood right here to keep this piece up after I got that in order to catch those two bolts, because I needed a hand. If you got help, that's great. That'll help, because then they can push the pan over and up where it needs to line up inside the radiator support. So that's why I use that to hold that up. And what else? So once I had those two in, oh, the other thing I got to tell you beforehand, in order to really slip that in there, you had to take out a few other 7/16 head bolts. So hopefully you could see it. That one, can you see it? Oh man, dang! Get that light underneath here. All right, now I can point to it. There. Well, that one and that one there goes into there anyway. But that one there you got to take out too, and that makes the inner fender, you could flex it a lot easier, and then where you can slip that in. So once all that's done, obviously you put it back and it's all bolted in there, and then there's that one right there, in case you're not catching it, right there. That's the last one to go in. And now I'm going to go put that washer and bolt back into the upper control arm bushing. Yeah, that's a 9/16 head. So that'll go back in there, and that takes care of that. Yeah, that was fun, especially by yourself. But if you can have help and just, hold this and guide the actual socket setup that I expressed to you earlier, I was able to put it back in with my fingers probably more than halfway. My hand went up and around the frame on one side to catch a finger, and then the same going into the front, and I was able to get that in there. And that's the reason why I was able to do that, because that was the first one. And then you have a freedom in that plate moving for you, so you can slip your hand in there. But that's the scoop. It's in there. And no more rusted piece that's over there. So I'm going to put that part back in. I already did clean up the A-frame right there, the cross member. And now I'm going to take the engine mounts out, because he got me new ones. I'm going to mark up 3/4 of an inch, put them in, And I'm also going to put the new side mounts in there as well, which will, one obviously goes there and the other one on the opposite side. So once I start doing that, we'll chime in. So until then, stand by. Okay, I got my welder, my MIG welder, and I got things cleaned up inside the cross member. And I'm going to show you what my plan is and for the process and preparations for moving the front body mounts, not body mounts, I'm sorry, engine mounts. Yeah, front engine mounts. These are the brand new ones. The old ones are out. Oh, they're so pretty. Look at that. They're in plastic. Yeah, these get mounted on there for the front part of the engine, and we will be adding the side ones. But before I could do these, I need to fill in which appears to be roughly a 1/7 to 1/8 inch hole, could be a little less, and I need to weld and fill it in, because when you see the size of the hole and my marks, you'll be able to tell that when you go to actually try to drill the same size holes, it's going to be kind of difficult to do. So let's take you under the hood, so to speak, and show you. Got it covered for the hoses, but as you can see, and even the fresh grinding marks on both, I got my lines in. I squared up lines, and I know they won't disappear. They're done with the limestone sticks, and once these are filled in, then I'll be able to properly put a hole, which the center of it, because it goes from center to center, I'll be able to put the same size hole here in this spot right here. And unfortunately, I won't be able to use my new magnetic drill. I'll have to do this all by hand, most likely with a keyhole saw. I'm going to make sure I actually measure it up and have a drill bit or the keyhole saw lined up and ready, so that I put the same size hole forward. So I already got my ground hooked up, and as you can see, as I mentioned before, I actually have the battery disconnected, positive, negative, and I even have a red cap right there that you can see on the battery. But I've taken that off just before I actually started to disconnect anything, because it does have, which I believe is a Dakota dash. I mentioned that before, and this way, anytime you weld anything on a car, whether it's the body or the frame, if there's any electronics or whatever, disconnect the ground, and this way you'll play it safe and you don't ruin anything. That's why I even have that covered, so when the hose drapes over for the wire feed, I don't want to mark anything up. So I'm going to get that done, and until then, stand by. The first hole is now welded up. My marks are still there. I will end up grinding it nice and flat and smooth. Now I'm going to address the other hole. Just figured I'd chime in and show you the progress. And it's actually a 7/8 of an inch hole, and I do have a keyhole saw for that. So that's what I'm going to be doing once I'm done welding and grinding. I'm going to set it up and get her done. So when the holes are there and in place, I will chime back in. So stand by. All right, there it is. Like I said, when it was all said and done, I tune back in and show you, and it looks like it was meant to be that way, other than the transmission line being in the way. Can't say I like the way those are, but I didn't do it, and I'm not about to get into changing it and everything, because it would entail not a lot, but enough. But anyhow, I cleaned it up with the wire wheel. This heavy duty one right here on the end of this grinder. Yep, went in there and got rid of the surface rust and whatever undercoating that came chipping off, and even cleaned up this pan here to kind of make it a little bit like that pan there, so, and then I sprayed it and went all the way around, and I even went up underneath and hit the spots where the weld shows and sprayed them too. It's kind of hard for some reason when you're laying a can in that direction, it doesn't want to shoot the paint out. Just the air that's shooting out of it, but I got it. So now I'm going to work on removing rivets, setting up the side mounts for the engine mounts. That's next. So maybe I'll shoot a little bit of that or what it's going to take, and you'll get to see how it's done. And hopefully if you're doing something like that, it'll help you out. So stand by. All right, well, I am. Pretty much it's the end of the day. And I'm going to give my 50 cents worth. You know, with inflation, everybody says put your 2 cents worth in. But it's been a real workout trying to get, not only getting the rivets out of the side to put the bolt on after you drill holes. As you can see right here, I drilled these 2 holes after I had the bracket in one of the holes, which was the bottom one of the 2 rivets that you take out. Keep in mind, those 2 rivets are not lined up exactly to the bracket. They're just not. It's not a big deal. The big deal is after you cut the head off of the actual rivet on both sides, 4 rivets, and then you use a punch. In this case, I used an air punch. And with the bottom ones of the 2, within a minute of the impact of the hammer punch, it popped free on both sides. But the top one, nope, that wasn't happening on either one. So it just wasn't one side, it was both sides here that acted up to where this one here, I couldn't get it out. So once I had the bottom one out, I put the bracket on, and then it's a 3/8 drill bit, and I had to drill through it, which not only did I have to drill through the 2 parts of the frame, I also had to drill through the actual rest of the rivet that was left. Now, with that being said, I got another issue. The bolts that they give you, they're pretty neat. They look like button heads. I'll show you. They're only so long. So I just got done taking a punch at an angle from the top and tried getting the rivet out from the inside. See, here's the coil spring. You got to get your hand up in here and wrap it around so that you can actually access that area where you got to put the bolt in the bracket. Here is the engine mount bracket that goes on the frame. It's 4 bolts that hold it on. Keep in mind they don't line up perfect, but that's not a big deal. The top ones, once you have at least a bolt in there tight so it doesn't move, then you can actually drill out the 2 top. Well, my problem is, seeing how short that is, they're not even an inch. Okay, it's less than an inch. So when you put it through there, because part of the rivet is still there, you can't get the nut on. So that obviously poses a problem. I thought I would have these on by 5 o'clock, and that's not the case. It's a few minutes to 5, and like I said, I took the punch in at an angle right here. It's where the hole is. And what I did is after I drilled everything, I took it back off and then I painted it so that, you know, all the new metal that would be shown would have paint on it to protect it on both sides. So that wasn't a big deal, but I'm having a hard time getting a nut on because that bolt, the button head bolt, doesn't reach. Doesn't get past that point where you can, you know, get it to bolt on. So I'll have to hit that on Monday, for sure. And there's the rest of the hardware. And boy, what a mess it makes. All that right there is all rust that rattled out from using because not only after you try to cut the head off, because you don't want to cut into the frame, you know, when you're using a wheel cutter, a small one no less, because this has got a curve to it. You could cut into it, not a big deal. You can weld it or whatever, fill it in, grind it. And then once I had at least halfway cut, I took the air chisel to it and popped the heads off on both sides. So, you know, I wanted to keep it clean. I want to get out from underneath this bad boy car and show you the rest of the mess on the floor. But that, even using the hammer and the chisel or the punch and all that, see all that? Even on the cardboard, all that rattled out of underneath the car. And I had to take the air to clear me a path for laying on there. So that's that for that. Monday I should be, I'm going to get them in. It's not a matter I should be able to get them in. I will. And that's the way that cookie's crumbling right now. It's not a fun cookie. I got a mess to clean up here. I'm going to have to do that a little bit after. I don't leave the place messy. But for now, well, that's pretty much, I'm going to cut this video here, this segment of this beautiful 57 Chevy wagon. And Monday I will start it back up again, another video showing more of the process of getting those engine mounts in. I really thought that they'd be done today. It just doesn't work out that way. You know, that's the way it is. Nothing goes as smooth as those instructions tell you. No way. Because even, like I said, after the rivets come out, the holes that are on those engine mount brackets do not line up exact. No big deal. It's not like you can't take a 3/8 drill bit and run it in there and clean it up. It's just that's just the way that is. So Monday I'll be doing that. And then I believe the next thing that I'll probably be doing, I don't know if I'm going to do the transmission cross member here on the floor or if I'm going to put it up on the lift to do it, to weld it, because I got to grind it all out, clean it up really good, and then re-weld those transmission brackets in there. Whoever did it, I showed the client, they did a horrible job, and I did show the video on that. I did film that yesterday. But like I said, that's going to end this segment. I do appreciate people watching, and if you haven't subscribed, if you would, that'd be awesome. Give me a thumbs up, give me a comment. If you got a suggestion of any kind, hopefully I'll get to see it, read it, and apply to it. And that'll be that. And until then, try to get something done. Thanks for watching.